The only way to protect ourselves from our emotions is information and data, because it's just facts, right? And so but I think a lot of times people are trying to protect their own emotions by avoiding it because it's maybe not what they want to see.
Good morning. This is Eric LeClaire over at Push Press, and we are continuing our In the Trenches series with a deep look into leadership. And over the past couple of years, we have had some substantial men and women leading from the front, not just from the gym owner space, but from the entrepreneurial space. And when I got a chance to sit back as a gym owner and look at who is providing help, who is providing direction or motivation, I can't think of a group or a duo better than the Hormozis. And so today I am so honored to be interviewing, but at the same time connecting at both the friendship level as well as a business level with Leila Hormozi. And so for those that may not know, which at this point in 2020, I can't imagine we don't know, but by all means, Leila, thank you for coming on today, and feel free if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Eric. I'm excited to be here. I'm Leila Hormozi. I am the co-CEO and co-founder of Gym Launch, as well as Prestige Labs and Allen, all of which originated as businesses that serve gym owners, and now Allen Software has kind of branched out to all brick and mortar facilities. I started the business with my husband about 4.5 years ago. And we met on Bumble, actually. It was a pretty funny story. People are like, how'd you guys start working together? I'm like, well, we met and we went on a date, and then he was like, hey, you should work for me. And I was like, what? Like, dude, I don't really, we're like a yo-yo, like this is weird. And I'll just keep it short, but essentially, I think 3 weeks after we met, we just found each other really interesting. We had all the same interests in terms of business and in our personal lives. And so before we even became a couple or really decided we even wanted to date each other, we did decide that we wanted to work together. And so I remember I came over to his house after work one day. I was personal training in person online at that point, and there was a booklet, and it was like this moleskin binder, and it said Gym Launch LLC. And I was like, you did it? And he was like, yeah, I thought we were going to start this. And I was like, all right, cool. And then 3 weeks after that, so about 6 weeks after we met, we started flying out to different gyms and basically testing our marketing and sales and then fulfillment practices there. We did that for 11 months. So we basically go out and be a hired gun for a gym. Yep. Yeah, while we ran their marketing. And so he'd be in Virginia, I'd be in Hawaii, he'd be in Oklahoma, I'd be in Florida. We did that for a while, which was freaking exhausting. But I learned, I seriously grew and learned more than ever in my entire life. And after that, we expanded and we hired a team and we flew them out to go do that. And then shortly realized that wasn't really a sustainable model. Right. Just because it's really interesting, right? Everyone wants 100 new members until you give them 100 new members. And then they're like, you just fucking broke my whole business. What the hell? And so it's second order consequences. Add 100 new members, you have a million new problems. You don't have your old ones, but you have just as many equal new ones. And so we realized that people needed to do it themselves in order to grow into the kind of person who could fulfill for that many people. And so we kind of accidentally, we thought we were going to get out of that and just do straight B2C online fitness. We actually started doing it. We're doing really well with me as the face of a weight loss company. And that day, Alex called up all the people we had lined up for the next 2 months that we were flying people out to their gyms. And he said, listen, I can't do this. It's just not working. We're getting out of the gym space. And they all said, my gym's going to go under if you don't help me. I need someone to help, please. And so that day he ended up saying yes to about 8 gym owners. And they said, we'll pay you. You don't need to send anyone out. Just teach us. And he had never wanted, if anyone, it's so funny because Alex always said to me, he's like, dude, I never want to be a coach or a guru. I literally detest that. I detest the space. And he is one of the ultimate now. So that was run Gym Launch as it kind of started. And we're, 4.5 years into it. And we started the supplement line, Prestige Labs, and we started our software, Allen. And so it's just been, it's been a really, really cool experience. Because I think that there's nothing that really can grow you faster than growing a business quickly, because you have to just continue to level up as a person in order to make it grow and lead everybody.
Of course. I mean, I don't remember who said it, or the adage, and correct me if I'm wrong, but your old habits will not open new doors. And I've watched you, obviously I've watched Alex, and I've watched the gyms in the culture of the gym launch culture. I've known them before, I've known them during, and now here we are, we see them after. And there've been a tremendous amount that have hit home runs and continue to hit home runs. From a personal standpoint, then how have you dealt with maybe the many iterations that you've had to go through?
I think I've always been somebody who's I've always been growth oriented. And so it first stemmed with fitness. When I was younger, I was 14, I started going to the gym and learning how to lift by myself. I didn't even like playing team sports. I think I was more of a loner, which is kind of ironic. And I was really introverted. And then it just continued to stem. And I started, reading and just doing my own thing really early on and kind of isolating myself from what a lot of other people did. Because I remember hearing if you do what everyone else does, you're gonna end up like everyone else. And I just didn't want to do that. And so I think it just kind of stems into people are what would you do if you didn't do this? And I was I would just be CEO of another company. I don't know. I think I am built for this. And so it just would have been me in a different company, found a different person to do it with. I feel yeah.
Interesting. Where now, I believe the last time we connected, you guys were living, were you in Florida or were you somewhere else?
I don't even know where we were because we lived in so many places. We were in California, and then we moved to Albuquerque, and then we moved to Puerto Rico, and then we had to stay in Michigan for a few months, and then moved back to California, and then now we're in Texas.
Wow. Now, is that from a planning standpoint, as the businesses have grown or evolved, are you overseeing different aspects of the business today? Is that why you're moving around, or are you just kind of figuring out in the country where you might land?
No, being really honest, it was taxes. I'm not about to stay in Cal. If the business started blowing up and we were oh, taxes in California suck, I'm going to just leave until we don't have to worry about that. And we just left.
Right. Well, we're a couple of days away from closing escrow on our property, and we're heading out to Tennessee, which is a fantastic place for business owners. I'm just saying.
No, it's actually a great place. I love Tennessee.
It's beautiful. Totally beautiful. Yeah. Well, the nice thing about this series is that we get it to be like a think tank amongst a bunch of owners and entrepreneurs, business, whether we talk the CEO side or the general manager side. Mm-hmm. If you were to have to think back in the earlier days of building the infrastructure for your company, you had a lot of hard decisions to make. You had a lot of maybe systems and processes to build, but then also the human component. You said we had to hire all these people. What were you looking for in those first hires? Were there any characteristics or personalities that stand out to you that you're man, this person needs to be on our team?
In the beginning, who I looked for is very different than who I look for now. But I wouldn't have done it differently. And I have had to let a lot of those people go, to be frank. But I just think that different people are fit for different stages of business. And for someone to withstand a business growing, you have to be very adaptable. So I did look for adaptability, but I think I looked for scrappiness over that. I looked for hard workers that were scrappy, that could learn quickly. I would say that was probably the top things I looked for. People that weren't afraid of change, and were hungry. And some of that hasn't changed, but as you continue to grow, you always have to have that gritty scrap on the inside, but not everything that you put out there can have that smell to it.
Right. Absolutely. So in the day-to-day operations from the, you say co-founder, co-CEO, who are you personally responsible for? What's the size of what the business looks like today?
Yeah. We've got about 55 people in-house, and then we have about 30 outside contractors. That's our development team. And so if you look at that today, I'm over most of it, aside from Alex is still pretty hands-on with marketing. And so I think I have 9 direct reports, which would be most, our executive team reports to me, and then some of our strategic team reports to me. So we have 4 executives, and then we have 9 strategic leaders, right? And I still meet with those who report to Alex in marketing, but he's the marketing genius, and so he meets there. I more so help with the management piece of that. So I'm at an interesting flux point right now because we have gym launch, which we've had for a long time, right? And so I have people who have been in there for 2.5, 3 years who know how things run. I've got Prestige, which is pretty much dependent upon gym launch and doesn't need a ton of management. And then I've got Alan, which is a brand new function in which I'm a lot more hands-on because I'm setting the foundation. And so I manage a lot more of the leadership in terms of gym launch and Prestige. And then I manage more tactically in the Alan side. So it's interesting. It's kind of like going backwards. Yeah.
Goals for sure. Well, let's dig in on that leadership piece. I mean, if you've got a product, obviously like gym launch, and you want it to have legs and live on, for years, what are your, what would you say would be your top 3 things you are the most proud of in developing gym launch? And then I'll ask later, maybe what are your 3 biggest struggles? Let's start with the wins. What are you most proud of from developing the leadership roles and the people that you have groomed inside gym launch?
I'm proud of, I would say, the leaders that are still here today who I've grown. I think that's the coolest thing is I think I have a really good relationship with the leaders inside of gym launch, and I'm really proud of watching them grow as people because I'm pretty critical of myself, but I think watching others grow and knowing that you are able to help facilitate that and that they're fulfilled. And we're a high performance team, so it's not as easy to fulfill a high performer's requirements as it would be somebody who just likes being complacent. And know that they're fulfilled in this company and that they're happy and they want to be here every day and that they want to do better every day, I think is just that in itself is something that I'm proud of. I'm proud of the improvements we've made as a team. Like, it's really interesting, right? Because I'm not proud of any giant monumentous things. I'm not proud of how much money we made. I'm not proud of this. I'm proud of the small things. I'm proud of these small things that we do well and we've continued to get better and better at over time. And I think that that's really interesting because that's really what fulfills me. I don't get super excited over big monumental things that we hit or objectives as a company. I get excited over the small work that's boring, I guess.
Interesting. How about the relationships? So obviously there's got to be people that now you've groomed, you've created, and you're probably almost as if that you've created from adolescence or childhood all the way up, and now you're like, look at that, look at them. This has been amazing. It's fulfilling to see that. Have you created some good friendships through the company?
Yes. I'm hesitant to use the word friendships. I think it's a degree of friendship. I think it's camaraderie. Because I always want to make sure. So here's the reason that I think friendship is interesting is because you can be as close of friends with your teammates as it doesn't prevent you from holding them accountable as they were a complete stranger.
I see.
So that's always the kind of the line I balance, which is I definitely I get along super well with some people. And almost to a point where I have to always remind myself it can never get in the way of me holding them accountable and holding them to their performance standards, which is interesting. It's kind of it's the most social and loneliest job that you can have.
I believe it. I could completely believe that. In developing staff and grooming from intern up to general manager, you get close, but you think to yourself hey, we still have to have this professional relationship.
Yep.
Well, now how about the flip side? If you were to have to look back now, hindsight being 2020, let's say 3 of your hardest learning lessons or 3 of your most, you look back and you're like, damn it, that's going to live with me for a little while.
Yeah, I can tell you that. That's easy. So I would say 1 is always give the customer what they want, not what they need. I think that there was a period of time, probably 8 months, that we really steered away from acquisition for gyms and we really focused on retention. And our clients, a very small segment of them liked that. But I think what the problem was is that me and Alex liked that. And we were more interested in that because we were like, you're going to make way more money retaining people than just continuously churning people. And for us, that was really fascinating, but it's really not for the customers. It's not something that they want to hear about consistently. And it wasn't what made us in the first place. What made us was being really good at acquisition, really good at making people more money. And so identifying what your customer needs and never steering away from that. We always talk about that now. We're like, what do they want? Even if we don't think it's right, if it's what they want us to do for them, then we need to remember that. Because at the end of the day, that's the responsibility of the business, is to take resources and create something that is larger than the sum of the parts through the desire of the customer, right? And so doing that, that's number one. Number two would be in terms of hiring. I've learned a lot of painful lessons there, which is, I've just made some really, I'm like, I don't know how we got where we are because I made some stupid decisions. I think there were probably two people that I put in leadership positions that should have never been there. And I always go by like trust first, right? Like if I hire you, I'm going to trust you automatically. If you do something to ruin that trust, then I'm going to start, looking at it. But I ruled a little bit too much by trust and not as much by tighter management and accountability in the very beginning. And so I had one person, for example, who overhired by a ridiculous amount for their department. And it's my fault. And I had to go in and I had to fire those people because it was, they overhired by like 5 times as many people because they just, every time someone said, oh, I think we need help, they just hired someone. And we are a very profitable company. So it's not like we were, super bottom line driven at that time in the sense of like, we weren't super worried about expenses because we're also virtual. And we're just such a different company today. I would just never, ever do that. So that was a painful mistake because that's messing with someone's livelihood. It's not something I'm proud of. But I'm not sorry about it because you can't be, and I think too many people are like, I'm so, they get so hung up on it. And I'm like, dude, like that's the risk you take is you get the biggest reward and you also have to live with the biggest failures that people will hate you for, which is interesting. But I'm okay with it. And then third thing, if I'm thinking of, mistakes in hindsight, I would say, I don't know if there's mistakes. I think something I've learned though, it's just that I think that what it takes to become a larger company, and which I think it would have been helpful if I had learned sooner, is that you need to really be able to hone in on the balance of having leadership skills versus managerial skills. And you need to understand what each of those is and what it means and what it looks like in an ideal world. And I think in the beginning, I led so much off of just leadership. I was someone called me like an operational leader, right? I didn't necessarily know how to do much, but I knew how to lead people and influence them to do things and build relationships. And now I've really honed in the last year or so, and that's what I continue to hone in on is like, how do I run a more effective meeting? How do I balance these KPIs? How do I hit these performance metrics and how do I track them? How do I know we're being efficient? What's our efficiency in this department? What are our KPIs? And I think that you have to find the balance of those two and what it takes to run a small organization. If you want to grow it, you have to develop more of that discipline. It's not fun, but it's something I think if people realize how important information and data is, especially small business owners. I think I've asked 2 CRMs now in the space, like, what do you have this data? And they're like, yeah, but that's actually the last thing people want. And I'm like, I think the only reason I have a CRM is so I can have data. Like, are you telling me that, well, the gym owners don't want that? And I was like, is this a joke? They're like, well, they'd rather have a spot to put in their workouts. So I'm like, what the fuck?
That's probably some of the exact same frustrations that the leadership at PushPress has, where the CRM is powerful to deliver the data, but when you have that raw bit of information and you give it to the gym owner, then they look at it and they just go, whatever. And so, I can imagine your frustrations. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I'm just like, man, the only way to protect ourselves from our emotions is information and data because it's just facts, right? And so but I think a lot of times people are trying to protect their own emotions by avoiding it because it's maybe not what they want to see.
Of course, it probably paints a picture that's either if they listen to it, they have to change and make a decision. If they ignore it, they don't have to make that hard decision.
Right, which in that case, you just default to the worst decision.
Well, then let's kind of go down that road. I mean, you have seen tremendous growth. You've learned magnificently how to pivot multiple times over. But with growth, with tremendous growth, obviously comes some professional collateral damage. And that you have to think into yourself, like, I have to make this decision. It's the best for the company. It's the best for where we're going. Like in your mind, your vision and your mission and kind of where you want to be. Along the way, how have you quelled, or maybe you can speak to this when it comes to like the competition mindset or the dominance mindset. How do you let go of, for lack of better professional terms, how do you let go of those that you had conflict with, or how do you let go of, the folks that are, now looking down their nose, thumbs down at your product or thumbs down at your company? How do you disconnect from that?
Well, one, I don't see any of it.
Oh,
I'll
good.
see it. I get it sent to me and people see it and I show it and honestly, I laugh at most of it. I'm like, I can't even believe someone said that. And I'm like, did you hear what they said today? I'm like, that's a new one. I honestly,
You just wipe it off. You just let it go.
I don't respond to anybody who says anything bad about us. I'm like, I would never in my real life, nobody that I would ever be friends with or associate with myself would ever talk that way to me, or
Right.
I would just never choose to interact with somebody who trolls on the internet or likes to just emotionally vomit all over other people because they don't like
Right.
their product or company. And so I'm just
Right.
like, one, most of those people aren't ever going to buy anything from me anyway. So I give a fuck what they think. The
Right.
second is have you ever heard Grant Cardone? He's like, you ain't got a jet. You know what I mean? Like, they ain't got a jet. I'm like, I don't show off anything we have or anything we've done, but I'm like, dude, I don't know. Results speak for themselves. Like, if you were right about things, and maybe you would be further along in your life. And so I kind of look at it like that. I'm like, I feel bad. You have a limited perspective and you just want to paint me into this picture, evil because I've accomplished something that makes you feel insecure. That's truly how I view it. And I say that because every time I think any bad thought about somebody, I think to myself, like, why would I feel that way about somebody?
Right.
And I think that people like to depict somebody as good or bad, and they don't know how to see the in-between. And I think that's really such a shame.
In the gray.
Yeah. But for the most part, I think I'm immune to it. I think that's because I do not believe that anything that anyone says about anybody else is about them. I think it's about themselves.
Right.
So anytime if I am mad at Alex for something, right? For example, am I really mad at Alex for that? Or am I mad at myself and I'm just projecting it onto him? 99% of the time, it's me. And so, when I see that, I'm just like, you having a bad day? Like, did I do something that pissed you off? Did I make you feel insecure? Did I make you feel less than? Did I say something that questions your beliefs and therefore makes you worry about your entire worldview being incorrect? And I think, a lot of people have a really hard time, and you see it now, right? They don't know how to disagree with people without hating them.
Right. It's not like, I disagree, we can still hang out. It's, I disagree, you're wrong, you're a horrible person, get out of my life.
Yeah, it's so fascinating because anytime someone disagrees with me, I'm like, really? Like, why do you think that? Like, I'm curious why, tell me. And that's how I approach it. And it's just kind of insane how many people in the world now, they're like, I hate you. You go in the bad bucket. We're never talking. Nothing you say is of any importance or is ever correct because you said one thing I disagree with. And
wild.
It's crazy.
It just shows a level of maturity that immediately, all right, that's not someone who we can consult with, hang out with, have a conversation with. That just doesn't seem to work.
Right. And then I also say, I'm like, because a lot of gym owners was like, well, these people are talking crap about me, right? I'm like, dude, they're just advertising for you. Like, nobody talks shit about the gym down the street that isn't making any money.
Right.
They talk shit about the gym down the street that's making all the money. That's the consumers. When consumers see everyone talking shit about somebody, they're like, that must be the best person in the industry because everybody is throwing rocks at them. That's just it's like,
I love it.
You know what I mean?
I totally dig it. Hey, from rather than a collateral damage direction, let's go in the opposite direction. And then let's talk about maybe a little bit of tech. As a leader and as someone that has to consistently communicate and clearly and effectively, continue to rally the troops, what technology do you rely on? Are there any systems? Are there any apps? Are there any things that you're like, hey, without these three things, I would be stuck in the mud?
I think one is, you could call it, we use one that's specific to our CRM. It's called Click, but it's basically Slack.
Okay.
Before that, we used Boxer. And so just a quick back and forth, day-to-day chatting tool.
Okay.
Zoom is where we post all our meetings since day one.
Okay.
And honestly, notes in my phone. So what I do is like to manage things, like I have every meeting that I have every week, and then I have every one-on-one that I have every week, and then all the things that were discussed. And I just go look back at my notes every week and review those. And then I keep myself organized with little folders. Yeah. In my phone, it syncs to my computer. I can just write in my computer. It's free.
Oh, I totally dig it. I love it. I love it. It's some folks will, they're constantly emailing in, or they're texting in, or they're, same thing. They're on Facebook or Instagram. They're like, I need more things. I need more efficiencies. I need more, whatever. So folks are always asking.
Dude, I've got people that have like $50 million businesses and they're running off Google Sheets. If you can program those well enough, they're like software. I mean,
it makes sense. It totally makes sense. Yeah. Without divulging too much, maybe that could be construed as maybe secretive down the road. Can you speak to where you guys are looking to take this post-COVID? I mean, obviously there's growth potential, and where do you guys see yourself heading?
Yeah. We're going to continue to basically, I think it's about a year ago that we started encouraging our gyms to have a remote and in-person model. And it's difficult for people to pull off, easy in theory.
Right.
If you don't have a strong team, it's really hard to organize both. And so we've moved towards everything we support in terms of sales, marketing, fulfillment is all geared towards you can be remote, you can be in person, or you could be both. And we have a solution for each of those in terms of what we release, deliver, and promote in our company. And so that's the first thing. The second is like the software that we have that basically works leads for gyms. It works remote leads and in-person leads now. And then, with our supplement line, just working on some of the UX to make it easier for remote purchases that we've been doing, and then releasing more products continuously that are at a little bit of a lower price point to help with people that have maybe lost a job, et cetera.
Right.
Those are the things that we're doing. We haven't steered off like our plan super far. It was like a year ago where we were like, oh, the industry's already going in this direction. It's just like we took 2030 and then brought it to 2020. So
right.
It just accelerated, but we're pretty well equipped to manage it as a company, which is, I think, just from the culture.
So you're saying if there are coaches out there that are listening to today, and maybe they were let go from their gym, and they're looking as like, I could be a remote coach today. I could do this from home. I could do it from my laptop. And so you're providing a solution for remote only versus the old school brick and mortar gyms, right?
Totally. Yeah. And a lot of our gyms have, unfortunately, they just had to go 100% remote. And so that's actually probably what most people are doing right now in our group. And I would say that's probably also why more people in our group are doing well than other groups. It's just because, and I think Alex and I are like high performance driven, and we're really push change. And so, people come in our program, either they're like eaten up alive or they thrive and they become a champion. And so I think it was interesting in the last few months because people have forced themselves to become champions because of the situation.
Right.
You really got to see what people are made of, which has been really cool to watch.
Well, that segues perfectly into the last piece. I mean, this platform provides an opportunity for both the gym owners, the general managers, the coaches, the interns, and even those individuals who are brand new looking into the gym space or the coaching space. If you could use this platform to speak to those who might be on the fence, they might be fearful, they might have just lost their job, their gym is just surviving, or maybe they're only one more month out. Maybe they're here in California and who knows when they're going to open up. Any messages to them, any poignant pieces of clarity, or any, pearls of wisdom that you'd love to share with those folks to maybe get them past this next couple of days?
Yeah, I have 3 things that come to mind. The first is, right now, what's become very obvious is that the only difference between someone who's going to win in the short term or lose in the short term is how they react to what is happening. Okay. So I've seen people that have had all cards put against them. They're shut down for the foreseeable future. They're still paying rent. They have a lot of employees and they're killing it. And then I have people who are in a situation where they're shut down for 6 weeks. People come back quickly, and yet they still let their gym go down and completely closed it. And I say that because we just all get to choose our attitude in any situation. And so we get to choose if we want to win or lose. And I think it's really interesting because most people look at winners and think you didn't have as many obstacles as me. The way to think about it is you had the same obstacles as me, you handled them differently. You
Right.
acted differently. Yeah. And so I'd say that's the first. You always have control over the outcome. Even in these days, if you believe that you can overcome the situation, I 100% I'm seeing it happen right now. We have tons of people that are making more money now than they were before just because we told them it's possible. And it is possible. The math doesn't lie.
Right.
The second piece going to that is like nothing is permanent, right? And so even if you are in a shitty situation right now, you don't have to be tomorrow or next week or next month or in 6 months. Maybe it's gonna be 6 months, maybe a year. I think it's just really, everything always feels so permanent when we're going through it. Yeah. Like if somebody's tired one day, they're like, man, I'm always tired. Or they have one bad day at work, they think, man, I hate this job. But it's like the day before they had a great day. And so I think it's just really, you have to look back and look at the track record and remember that it's always going to go up and down. It's never always going to be constant. And then the last piece going with that is what, I just always think about this, which is like, unless you have no friends, you'll never be homeless. And so like when I think of people like, I mean, for me, I'm always like, let's go worst case scenario, right? And when me and Alex first started the business, we slept at our friend's house for 4 months. Guess what? Wasn't that bad. They had great food. They cooked. They loved having us there. Like we had people to talk to. And so we always joke. It's like, dude, if you have friends and you've got family, you're never gonna be homeless. Like what's the worst case scenario? Like what are you so afraid of? And so I think just asking yourself that and painting that picture and confronting it and saying, how bad is that really?
Right.
That's it. And so I would say just those 3 things just to think about and kind of just chew on over the next few weeks, I think would be important and useful. And then, the last one is just, I think right now it's the time we need people to be leaders in the community. Like people need people to rely on. They need people that are a light, that aren't just talking negatively, being up, like having a down demeanor. Yeah. And I think it's just, I look at it and I'm like, I signed up for owning a business. Therefore, I have the responsibility to be a light to other people right now. So I think I've been more positive and upbeat than I've been at any other time. It's because I want people to be able to rely on me. And so I would just remind everyone that if they chose this life, then that's just part of what comes with it. And it doesn't take much more than a few minutes in the morning to get yourself right, to remember like you can completely change the day of everyone who works for you and all of your clients if you just show up well.
Yep. I totally agree. I love it. That's probably the most powerful way for folks to figure out their future is to start, of course, with themselves. I love it.
Yeah.
So for those folks that have watched today and they were inspired by maybe something they picked up, maybe they jotted down some notes themselves, and they're interested in following up with you, where can they find you or how can they find you and get in contact?
Yeah. I think my Instagram, I'm so not popular on social media, is Leila and Hormozi.
Okay.
And you can find me on Facebook, Leila Hormozi.
Okay.
That's it. I don't have any like links or podcasts or anything like that. I just, I'm pretty internal.
I love it. That's super slick and easy. Well, I sincerely appreciate your time, the wisdom, the growth, the look back. We say the lessons learned. For some folks we've been interviewing, we tell them, look, hey, in about 2 or 3 months when this COVID stuff shuts down or people start returning back to operations, we'd love to come back and revisit and all that look back on like, hey, what did we learn? How are we better? What did we change to? I mean, we know so many folks are getting ready to change. So we will definitely, again, as we go forward. So thank you. I sincerely, from myself personally to you, please tell Alex hello. This has been fantastic.
I will. And thanks for having me on, Eric.
Absolutely. You got it. All right.